I never thought the most dangerous night of my life would end like this. Hiding in a stranger's car, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst, with my ex Daniel's madness chasing me down the street. My hands trembled as I threw myself onto the back seat of the shiny black Mercedes, the tinted windows offering me a shield from the outside world. Out there, everything was chaos, but in here I could only hear the sound of my own ragged breathing. God, what am I doing? This is insane, I whispered to myself, curling my body lower behind the driver's seat, trying to make myself as small as possible. This was wrong, completely wrong. But damn, he never stops, never gives up, and I was exhausted from dealing with his obsession for months now. Suddenly the car door opened. I froze completely, holding my breath. A shadow entered, and then a scent hit my nostrils that I immediately recognized on an instinctual level. Alpha scent. Pure, raw, dominant, and dangerously intoxicating. My omega instincts reacted instantly, my entire body going rigid, but I tried to control my breathing so whoever this was wouldn't detect my presence right away. The person who slid into the driver's seat was completely silent. No movement, no sound, just an oppressively heavy silence that made my fear intensify. Then his voice came, cold, measured, dangerously calm in a way that sent shivers down my spine. Are you planning to explain yourself? Or should I just call the police right now? I swallowed hard, my heart racing even faster. His tone was so casual it actually made things worse because he didn't sound surprised at all, like finding someone hiding in his car was just another Tuesday evening. I gathered my courage and slowly raised my head just enough to see him, and when I did, God, who was this man? Sharp jawline that looked like it was carved from marble. Steel gray eyes that caught mine in the rearview mirror with an intensity that pinned me in place. Black suit that was perfectly tailored to his powerful frame. And that scent, it was so strong and commanding that my entire body felt weak and vulnerable in his presence. This wasn't just any ordinary man, this was a predator. And I had just stumbled into his territory. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to intrude like this. My words came out broken, panic clear in my voice. Please, just drive somewhere, anywhere, and I'll explain everything. I swear, please just go. He studied me through the mirror with those penetrating eyes, analyzing everything about me in a way that made me feel completely exposed. Then, without saying another word, he started the engine and pulled out of the parking spot. I turned to look out the back window. Daniel was still standing on the street corner, phone in his hand, probably calling me repeatedly or maybe even calling the police to report me missing. The car began moving through the city streets and I let out a breath of relief, though when I looked back at the man driving, there was something in his eyes that unsettled me. An intensity, like he was reading my thoughts, like he somehow knew everything I wasn't saying out loud. Running from your ex, I assume? He asked after several minutes of silence, his eyes still fixed on the road ahead. I was shocked. How could you possibly know that? Your scent tells me everything I need to know, he stated in a matter-of-fact tone, fear mixed heavily with desperation. And underneath that, a hint of relief, now that you're moving. And those omega instincts of yours, they're screaming loud enough for any alpha to pick up on. My heart hammered in my chest. This man, he wasn't ordinary, not even close, and I was beginning to realize I might have just traded one complicated situation for another potentially more dangerous one. We drove in silence for another 15 minutes before he pulled up to a hotel on the quieter outskirts of the city. It looked clean and respectable, the kind of place that didn't ask too many questions. He finally turned to look at me directly for the first time, and the full force of his presence hit me like a physical wave. Stay here tonight, he said, pulling out his wallet and handing me several bills, more than enough for a room and food. Don't contact anyone. Don't use your credit cards. Just lay low until morning. Why are you helping me? I asked, confused by this stranger's unexpected kindness. He was quiet for a moment, those gray eyes searching my face like he was trying to decide something. Because I don't like seeing omegas in distress. And because something tells me you're in deeper trouble than you realize. Before I could ask what he meant, he reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into my palm. If things get worse, call that number. Someone will help you. I looked down at the elegant card, but before I could read it in the dim light, he was already gesturing for me to get out. Go. before your ex tracks your phone location or something equally stupid. I scrambled out of the car, clutching the card and the money, watching as the black Mercedes pulled away into the night. My legs felt shaky as I walked into the hotel lobby, my mind spinning with questions. Who was that man? Why did he help me? And why did every instinct in my body react so strongly to his presence? The hotel clerk barely looked at me as I paid cash for a room, and within minutes I was alone in a small but clean space with a bed, a TV, and a lock on the door. I sat on the edge of the mattress, finally pulling out the business card to read it under the lamplight. The letters were embossed in gold, elegant and professional, but it was the name that made my breath catch in my throat. Cade Hawthorne, CEO, Hawthorne Enterprises. I stared at the card in disbelief. Hawthorne Enterprises was one of the biggest companies in the city. Real estate, tech investments, luxury developments. I'd seen their buildings all over downtown. And the man who just rescued me was the CEO. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. 17 missed calls from Daniel. 12 text messages, each one more unhinged than the last. I turned off my phone completely, not wanting to deal with him tonight. As I lay back on the hotel bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about those steel gray eyes, that commanding presence, that intoxicating alpha scent. I didn't know Cade Hawthorne, had never even heard his name before tonight, but something had shifted in those brief moments in his car. Something that told me this wasn't over. Something that whispered this was only the beginning. I fell asleep with his business card clutched in my hand. Daniel's threats temporarily forgotten, replaced by the memory of a stranger who had shown me unexpected mercy when I needed it most. The next morning, I returned to my life pretending the previous night had been some kind of fever dream. I went back to my tiny apartment, changed into my work clothes, and headed to my cafe job like nothing had happened. The smell of fresh coffee and baking pastries usually calmed me, but today I couldn't shake the lingering memory of that alpha scent, couldn't forget the weight of those gray eyes studying me. I figured I'd never see Cade Hawthorne again. He was a billionaire CEO, and I was just a barista trying to make rent every month. Our worlds wouldn't overlap, and that encounter would fade into just another strange story I'd tell someday. Except fate apparently had other plans. The morning rush had just ended and I was wiping down the espresso machine when the bell above the door chimed. I glanced up automatically with my customer service smile ready. But the smile froze on my face. Cade Hawthorne walked into my cafe like he owned it, and knowing his real estate portfolio, he probably did own the building. Same perfectly tailored suit, though today it was charcoal gray instead of black. Same commanding presence that seemed to lower the temperature in the room. Same dangerous energy that made my omega instincts snap to attention. My hand slipped on the machine, nearly knocking over a clean cup. He approached the counter with confident, measured steps, his steel gray eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Good morning, James. You look surprised to see me. Wait, I felt my face go blank with confusion. How do you know my name? I never told you. Your name tag, he said smoothly, gesturing to my chest where my work badge was pinned. But something in his expression told me he'd known before he walked in here. I wanted to make sure you were all right after last night. No more trouble from your ex? I glanced around nervously, aware that my coworker Sarah was watching our interaction with obvious curiosity from the back counter. I'm fine. Thank you for your help. Really, but you didn't need to come check on me. Maybe I wanted to, he replied, leaning against the counter in a deceptively casual pose. Or maybe I came for coffee. This is a cafe, after all. There was something challenging in his tone, like he was testing me. I grabbed a cup, trying to steady my shaking hands. What can I get you? Surprise me. I trust your judgment. The way he said it made it sound like we were talking about more than just coffee. I focused on making him a cappuccino, trying to ignore how hyper-aware I was of his gaze following my every movement. When I set the finished drink on the counter, he wrapped his hand around mine before I could pull away. His touch was warm, firm, deliberate, not painful, but enough to send electricity shooting up my arm and straight to my brain. We need to talk, James. Somewhere private. I'm working, I managed to say, though my voice came out weaker than I intended. Take your break. This is important. Something in his tone made me realize this wasn't a request. I told Sarah I was taking 15 minutes and followed Cade outside to where his Mercedes was parked at the curb. He didn't make me get in, just stood beside the car with his arms crossed, looking down at me with those unreadable gray eyes. I looked into your situation last night, he began without preamble. Your ex, Daniel Reeves. He's got a record, restraining order violation from a previous relationship, harassment charges that were dropped, connections to some unsavory people who lend money at criminal interest rates. I felt cold despite the warm morning sun. You investigated him? Why would you do that? Because I protect what's mine, he said simply, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I'm not yours, I shot back, feeling defensive despite the flutter in my chest at his words. His expression didn't change, but something flashed in those gray eyes. Not yet, but you will be. The confidence, the certainty in his voice should have made me angry. Instead, it made my heart race for entirely different reasons. You don't even know me. This is crazy, is it? You're in danger, whether you want to admit it or not. Daniel isn't going to stop. Men like him never do until they're forced to. Cade stepped closer and I was suddenly very aware of how much taller he was, how his scent wrapped around me. I can help you. I can protect you, but you need to trust me. Trust you? I met you last night when I broke into your car, and yet here you are, listening to me instead of running away. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Your instincts are telling you something, aren't they? That's why you're still standing here. He was right, damn him. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away, to keep my distance from this complicated, powerful, dangerous man. But something deeper, something primal in my omega nature was drawn to him like a magnet. Cade reached into his jacket and pulled out another business card, but this time he wrote something on the back before handing it to me. That's my private number and my home address. Come see me tonight at 8. We'll discuss how to handle Daniel properly, legally. I have lawyers who specialize in this kind of thing, and if I don't come, his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then I'll assume you prefer to handle your stalker ex-boyfriend on your own, and I'll respect that decision. But somehow I don't think that's what you really want. He was right again, and I hated how easily he could read me. I took the card, our fingers brushing for just a moment. Fine. 8 o'clock. But just to discuss the Daniel situation. Else, of course, he agreed. But there was something in his eyes that suggested he had other plans. Just the Daniel situation. He got into his Mercedes and drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with another business card in my hand and my head spinning. Sarah practically pounced on me the moment I walked back into the cafe. Who was that? She demanded, her eyes wide with excitement. Do you know who that was? That was Cade Hawthorne. The Cade Hawthorne. He's just someone who's helping me with a legal problem. I mumbled, but even to my own ears it sounded weak. Sarah looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Girl, men like that don't just help random baristas with legal problems. There's definitely something else going on here. I couldn't argue with her because she was probably right. As I went back to work, making lattes and serving pastries, I couldn't stop thinking about tonight, about what I was walking into. Part of me knew I should cancel, should stay away from Cade Hawthorne and his magnetic pull. But another part of me, the part that was tired of being afraid, tired of looking over my shoulder for Daniel, wanted to see what would happen if I took this leap. At 7:30 that evening, I stood outside my apartment in my best casual clothes, Cade's address programmed into my phone, trying to decide if I was brave or just stupid. I guess I was about to find out. The address Cade gave me led to a building in the most expensive part of downtown, all glass and steel, with a doorman who looked like he could bench press a car. When I gave my name, he simply nodded and directed me to a private elevator that required a key card, which he provided with a knowing look that made me blush. As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse level, my stomach churned with nerves. What was I doing here? This was insane. I barely knew this man, and yet I was voluntarily walking into his private space, drawn by some inexplicable pull I couldn't name or resist. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, and I stepped into a space that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city lights spread out below like a blanket of stars. Everything was sleek, modern, expensive, leather furniture, abstract art on the walls, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. And standing by those massive windows, silhouetted against the city lights, was Cade. He'd changed from his suit into dark slacks and a black button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. A glass of amber liquid sat on the side table next to him. "You came," he said, turning to face me. There was satisfaction in his voice, like he'd won a bet with himself. "You made it sound pretty important," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady as I ventured further into the room. "So let's talk about Daniel and what legal options I have." "Straight to business," Cade observed, a hint of amusement in his expression. "I admire that. But first, let me offer you a drink. You look like you could use one." Before I could refuse, he was already at the bar, pouring something into a glass. When he handed it to me, our fingers touched again, and that same electric current ran through me. I took a sip, whiskey smooth and expensive, nothing like the cheap stuff I occasionally bought. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to the leather couch. When I hesitated, he added, "Please." I sat and he took the chair across from me, those gray eyes never leaving my face. "I had my legal team pull together everything on Daniel. The picture isn't good, James. He's escalating. The frequency of his calls to you has increased. He was spotted near your apartment building twice this week. He's made threatening posts on social media that he later deleted, but we have screenshots." My blood ran cold. "How do you know all this?" "I have resources. I used them." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Here's what I can do. My lawyers can file for a comprehensive restraining order with teeth. One that comes with serious circus if he violates it. We can also involve a private security firm to document any further harassment, building an ironclad case if he pushes things further." "That sounds expensive. I can't afford—" "You're not paying for it," Cade cut me off. "Consider it handled." Pride flared in my chest. "I don't take charity. I don't even know why you're doing this." "It's not charity." His voice dropped lower, more intense. "And as for why I'm doing this, I think you already know the answer." My heart started that treacherous pounding again. "Enlighten me." Cade stood and crossed to the windows, his back to me as he stared out at the city. "When you climbed into my car last night, terrified and desperate, something happened. My alpha instincts recognized you instantly. That doesn't happen often. It's actually incredibly rare." "Recognized me as what?" "As mine." He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. "As someone I meant to protect, to claim, to keep safe." "You felt it too. Don't try to deny it." I wanted to deny it, wanted to laugh it off as ridiculous alpha posturing. But he was right. I had felt something primal and undeniable. "This is crazy. We don't know each other." "Then let's change that." He moved back toward me, sitting on the edge of the coffee table so we were at eye level. "Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly." I took another sip of whiskey for courage. "Why aren't you already mated? Someone with your looks, power, money. You could have anyone." "Because I never met anyone who made me want to be," he replied without hesitation. "Until now." The honesty in his voice shook me. "You can't possibly know that after one day." "Can't I? I've lived 32 years, James. I've met thousands of people, dated dozens of omegas. None of them made me feel what I felt the moment I scented your fear mixed with that underlying sweetness that's uniquely yours. None of them made me want to track down their stalker ex and break his legs for causing them distress. Despite everything, I felt my lips twitch. That's a little violent. I'm an alpha. Violence is in my nature when something threatens what's mine." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed his fingers along my jaw. "But I can be gentle too, when it matters." His touch sent shivers through my entire body. I should pull away, should maintain some distance. But I found myself leaning into his hand instead. "What do you want from me, Cade?" "Really? Honestly? Everything." His thumb traced my lower lip, his eyes following the movement with dangerous focus. "I want you to stay here where you're safe. I want you to let me handle Daniel so you never have to be afraid again. I want to learn every single thing about you, what makes you laugh, what makes you angry, what makes you feel alive." That's a lot to want from someone you just met. "I know. But I've never been good at wanting things halfway." His hand slid to the back of my neck, gentle but possessive. "Stay tonight. Not for anything physical. Just stay. Let me prove I can keep you safe." Let yourself feel what this connection between us could become. Every logical thought in my head screamed that this was moving too fast, that I should run while I still could. But when I looked into those steel gray eyes and felt the warmth of his touch, the safety of his presence, I found myself nodding. Just tonight, I whispered. To see what this is. Just tonight, he agreed. But something in his smile told me he knew it wouldn't end there. Come on, I'll show you to the guest room. As he led me through the penthouse, his hand never leaving the small of my back, I realized I'd just made a decision that would change everything. I just didn't know yet how much. I woke up tangled in sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows I didn't recognize. For a few disoriented seconds, I couldn't remember where I was. Then the events of last night came rushing back. I'd agreed to stay at Cade's penthouse, accepted his protection, stepped into a world so far removed from my own it might as well have been another planet. The guest room was minimalist but luxurious. Everything in shades of gray and white, with furniture that looked like it belonged in a showroom. I could smell coffee brewing somewhere in the penthouse, and my stomach reminded me I'd barely eaten yesterday. After a quick shower in the bathroom that had more amenities than my entire apartment, I pulled on yesterday's clothes and ventured out into the main living space. Cade was already at the breakfast table, looking every inch the powerful CEO in a navy suit that was perfectly tailored to his frame. He was scrolling through something on a tablet, his expression focused and businesslike. But when he noticed me, his features softened in a way that made my heart skip. Good morning. I hope the bed was comfortable, he said, setting the tablet aside and giving me his full attention. Better than I expected, I admitted, sliding into the chair across from him. The spread on the table was impressive. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon. This is all still really overwhelming. I understand. Help yourself to breakfast while we discuss next steps. He poured me coffee without asking, somehow knowing I took it with cream and sugar. There's something important we need to address. I felt my stomach tighten with apprehension. What now? Your job at the cafe isn't viable anymore, he stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. I've already spoken with your manager. You'll receive 8 weeks severance pay, more than generous for your tenure there. I nearly dropped my coffee cup. Excuse me? You did what? That's my job, my income, my choice to make. It was making you a sitting target, he countered, his voice calm but firm. Daniel knows your schedule, knows where to find you at any given time. Staying there would be reckless. So your solution is to take away my autonomy, to make decisions about my life without consulting me. I could feel anger rising in my chest, mixing with fear and confusion. I may need help, but I'm not some damsel who needs you to control everything. Cade leaned back in his chair, studying me with those penetrating gray eyes. You're right. I overstepped. But my offer stands because it makes strategic sense. Work for me as my personal assistant. You'll earn triple what you made at the cafe. You'll learn valuable skills, and most importantly, you'll be somewhere I can ensure your safety. That's not really a choice if my other option is unemployment. Then consider it an opportunity disguised as necessity, he replied. But if you truly want to go back to that cafe and risk Daniel showing up during your shift, I won't physically stop you. I'll just assign security to watch over you, which will make your coworkers uncomfortable and probably get you fired anyway. The frustrating thing was that he was making sense, even if I hated how he'd gone about it. You're manipulative, you know that? I prefer strategically persuasive. There was a hint of amusement in his expression. Is that a yes? Fine. But we're establishing ground rules. You don't make major decisions about my life without talking to me first. This arrangement is temporary until Daniel is dealt with. And I actually do the work. I won't be some figurehead you parade around. Agreed on all counts. He stood, checking his watch. Get ready. We leave for the office in 30 minutes. You'll need professional clothes, but we can handle that this evening. An hour later, I found myself walking through the gleaming headquarters of Hawthorne Enterprises, trying not to feel like an imposter in my borrowed clothes. The building was all glass and chrome, filled with people who looked like they'd stepped out of a business magazine. Every head turned as Cade led me through the corridors, whispers following in our wake. Is he the new hire? Why is Mr. Hawthorne personally showing him around? I heard he's replacing Jennifer as his assistant. Cade's office was on the top floor, a space that somehow managed to be both intimidating and beautiful. He spent the next hour walking me through my responsibilities, managing his calendar, screening communications, preparing briefing documents for meetings. It was actually interesting work, and I found myself getting absorbed in learning the systems. "You're a quick study," Kate observed, watching me navigate the scheduling software. "This might actually work out well." "Don't sound so surprised. I'm not just a pretty face for you to protect." The words came out more bitter than I intended. Before he could respond, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and felt my blood turn to ice. "Found you. Fancy office for a coffee boy. Does he know what a whore you really are? I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. You can't hide behind money forever." The phone slipped from my trembling fingers and clattered to the floor. Cade was beside me instantly, his alpha instincts clearly sensing my distress even before he saw the screen. "Let me see." It wasn't a question. I watched his expression darken as he read the message, his jaw tightening in a way that would have been frightening if I didn't know his anger wasn't directed at me. He pulled out his own phone and made a call, his voice cold and commanding. "Marcus, I need a priority trace on a number. Text sent to James's phone approximately 90 seconds ago. Pull surveillance footage from all building entrances for the past hour. Increase perimeter security immediately and add James's photo to the protection roster." When he ended the call, he crouched down to my level, his hands gentle on my shoulders. "Look at me, James. He's trying to scare you, to make you feel vulnerable. Don't let him win. He knows where I am." "How does he know where I am?" "Because you haven't changed your phone yet, which was careless of me not to address sooner. We'll get you a new number today, registered under the company. He won't be able to find it." Cade's thumbs rubbed soothing circles on my shoulders. "Do you trust me to keep you safe?" It was a loaded question, one that went deeper than just physical safety. Trusting him meant accepting this growing connection between us, meant admitting that maybe I wanted more than just his protection. Despite barely knowing him, despite how fast everything was moving, I heard myself say, "Yes, I trust you." Something shifted in his expression, satisfaction mixed with something softer. "Good. Because I meant what I said. He won't get near you." The rest of the day passed in a blur of learning new systems and trying not to think about Daniel watching me. Somehow, by the time evening came, I was exhausted in every possible way. Back at the penthouse, I retreated to the guest room early, claiming fatigue but really just needing space to process everything. I was nearly asleep when I saw it, a shadow outside the window barely visible in the city lights. My entire body went rigid as I recognized the silhouette. Daniel was out there, several stories up on what should have been an inaccessible ledge, staring in at me with that possessive, unhinged expression I'd learned to fear. My scream caught in my throat, coming out as a strangled gasp. The door burst open before I could even reach for my phone. Cade rushed in wearing only dress pants, his chest bare and his hair slightly disheveled like he'd been getting ready for bed. His eyes immediately scanned the room, landing on my terrified face before tracking to where I was staring at the window. He was there in 3 long strides, yanking the curtains open with no fear, but when he looked out, there was nothing. Just the empty ledge and the city sprawling below us. "He was there," I insisted, my voice shaking so badly I barely recognized it. "I saw him, Cade. Daniel was right there, looking in at me with this horrible smile." "I believe you." He was already on his phone, his voice clipped and authoritative. "Full perimeter sweep now. Check all exterior access points. Review footage from the last 10 minutes. I want to know, oh, someone got onto that ledge." He ended the call and came to sit beside me on the bed, his presence immediately calming even through my panic. "Come here," he said softly, opening his arms in invitation rather than demand. I didn't hesitate, practically falling into his embrace. His skin was warm, his scent wrapping around me like a safety blanket. For the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself actually lean on someone. Let myself be vulnerable. "Just breathe with me," he murmured, one hand moving in slow circles on my back. "In and out. You're safe. I've got you." We sat like that for several minutes, while my breathing gradually steadied. I could feel his heartbeat under my cheek, strong and steady, an anchor in my storm of fear. "How did he even find this place?" I finally whispered. "This building is supposed to be secure." "I don't know yet, but I will find out." There was steel in his voice, And when I do, there will be consequences. His security team confirmed that someone had been on the exterior maintenance ladder, though they disappeared before guards could reach them. The CCTV showed a figure matching Daniel's build, but the footage was too grainy for a positive identification. He's escalating, Cade said, studying the images on his phone. This isn't just stalking anymore. This is a direct threat. I spent the rest of that night in Cade's room, not for anything romantic but because I couldn't bear to be alone. He gave me the bed and took the couch by the window, positioning himself between me and any potential threat. Even knowing he was there, I barely slept. Morning brought a new nightmare. When we arrived at the office, there was chaos everywhere. Cade's PR team was in crisis mode. People rushing around with tablets and phones, speaking in urgent whispers. One look at their faces told me something had gone very, very wrong. What happened? I asked one of the assistants. A woman named Rebecca who'd been friendly yesterday. She looked uncomfortable, her eyes flicking to Cade before back to me. You should probably see for yourself. She handed me a tablet, and my world tilted. Tabloid websites, gossip blogs, social media, everywhere I looked. There were photos of me and Cade. Doctored images showing us in intimate situations that never happened. Headlines screaming scandal. Hawthorne's hidden omega, Billionaire's secret romance exposed. From barista to kept man. James Carter's rapid rise. Love nest or scandal. CEO's mysterious new companion. My face was everywhere. My full name. Speculation about my past. Invasive comments dissecting my appearance and making crude assumptions about our relationship. The comments section was a cesspool of judgment and cruelty. Oh God. The tablet nearly fell from my numb fingers. Everyone knows. My family, my friends, everyone I've ever known can see this. It's character assassination, Rebecca said quietly. Someone leaked fake information to multiple sources simultaneously. This was coordinated. Cade took the tablet from me, his expression hard as granite. Daniel, it has to be. This ruins everything, I said, feeling panic rising in my chest. My reputation, any chance of a normal life after this. People will always see me as this. Their opinions are worthless. Cade's voice was dismissive, almost cold. This changes nothing between us. This changes everything. I snapped, frustration and fear making me lash out. You don't understand because you're untouchable. You're Cade Hawthorne. Nothing sticks to you. But I'm nobody. And now I'm the gold-digging omega who seduced a billionaire. That's all anyone will ever see. Then maybe your old life needed to end anyway, he said, and there was something almost challenging in his tone. Maybe this is pushing you towards something better. I stared at him, unable to believe his callousness. How can you be so cold about this? Because I've learned that public opinion is fleeting and ultimately meaningless. He handed the tablet back to Rebecca. Issue a statement. Brief and professional. James is an employee of Hawthorne Enterprises hired on merit. Our private lives are not up for public discussion. Pursue legal action against any publication that printed doctored images. He turned to me. My office. Now. I followed him into his private space. Anger and humiliation warring inside me. He closed the door and locked it, ensuring complete privacy. I understand you're upset, he began. But I cut him off. Upset? I'm devastated, Cade. My entire life just got exposed and twisted for entertainment. You're right. His response surprised me. You're absolutely right to be angry and scared. But I need you to hear something. He moved to stand by the window, his back to me. And for the first time since I'd met him, he seemed almost uncertain. I'm not good at emotional vulnerability. I was raised to see feelings as weaknesses to be controlled. My father built this empire by being ruthless, and I learned from him. But you, he turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. You've gotten under my skin in a way no one else ever has. These past few days with you have made me feel more alive than the last decade of my life. I want to protect you. Yes, but it's more than that. My heart was pounding now for entirely different reasons. I want you in ways that terrify me, he continued, taking a step closer. Not just physically though, God knows that's there too. I want to know everything about you, your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh at 2 in the morning. I want to be the person you turn to when things fall apart. Cade, I didn't know what to say. I'm asking you to take a leap with me, he said, closing the distance between us. His hands came up to frame my face. gentle despite their strength. Let me claim you properly, not because you need protection, but because we both want this connection. Be mine, James. Choose me the way I've already chosen you. It was too much, too fast, too intense. I need time to think about this. Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. Take what you need, but know that I'm not walking away, regardless of what you decide. That evening, leaving the office felt like running a gauntlet. Paparazzi had gathered outside, cameras flashing, questions shouted. Cade's security team formed a barrier, but nothing could block out the invasive attention. We made it to his car, but the damage was done. I felt exposed, violated, raw. The parking garage of his building should have been safe. That's what I thought until Daniel stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, and this time he wasn't alone. Two men flanked Daniel, both large, both clearly hired muscle. Cade had stepped away briefly to speak with his driver about changing our route home, leaving me exposed for just 30 seconds. That's all it took for Daniel to make his move. "Hello, sweetheart," Daniel said, his voice dripping with false affection that made my skin crawl. "Miss me?" I backed up until I hit the car behind me. "Trapped? Stay away from me, Daniel. There's a restraining order being filed. You can't do this." "Restraining order?" He laughed. The sound unhinged. "Pieces of paper don't mean anything. You're mine, James. You've always been mine. No amount of money or fancy lawyers changes that fundamental truth. We're done. We've been done for months. You need to accept reality and move on with your life." His expression darkened, turning ugly. "Move on? After everything I invested in you? All the time I spent shaping you into what I needed? No. If I can't have you, then nobody can. Especially not some arrogant billionaire who thinks he can buy whatever he wants." One of his hired men grabbed my arm, and I opened my mouth to scream. But then, "Release him. Now." Cade's voice cut through the garage like a blade, cold and absolutely lethal. I thought I'd seen Cade intimidating before, but this was different. This was primal alpha dominance in its purest form. Every line of his body radiated danger, his eyes darkened to almost black, his presence seeming to fill the entire space. Daniel's men hesitated, clearly regretting their involvement. The one holding my arm let go and stepped back. "You made a critical error in judgment," Cade said, advancing on them with predatory grace. "You came after what belongs to me." What happened next was almost too fast to follow. Cade moved with brutal efficiency, years of self-defense training evident in every strike. The first hired man went down with a single hit to the solar plexus. The second tried to fight back, but found himself slammed against a concrete pillar, the air knocked from his lungs. Then Cade turned his attention to Daniel, and the temperature in the garage seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Wait, we can talk about this." Daniel tried to back away, but Cade was already on him. One perfectly executed punch sent Daniel sprawling. Before he could recover, Cade had him by the collar, lifting him and slamming him against the nearest car with enough force to dent the metal. "Listen very carefully," Cade growled, his forearm across Daniel's throat. "You've crossed a line you can't uncross. First mistake, stalking James despite being warned. Second mistake, attempting to destroy his reputation with those fake photos. Third mistake, putting your hands on him in my presence." Daniel was gasping, genuine terror in his eyes now. I'd never seen him afraid before. He was always the one inspiring fear in others. "Here's what's going to happen," Cade continued, his voice dropping to something even more menacing. "I'm going to dismantle your life piece by piece. Every business connection you have, every professional relationship, every social circle, gone. My lawyers will bury you in litigation. The criminal charges for stalking, harassment, and assault will stick because I have the resources to make sure they stick." He leaned in closer. "And if you ever come near James again, I will show you exactly what a motivated alpha with unlimited resources can do to someone who threatens his omega. Are we crystal clear?" Daniel could barely nod, his face turning red from the pressure on his throat. Cade released him with obvious disgust, and Daniel crumpled to the ground, scrambling away like the coward he was. His hired men had already fled, wanting no part of this situation. Security arrived then, called by the driver who'd witnessed everything. Within minutes, the garage was filled with police officers taking statements. Daniel and his accomplices were arrested on multiple charges: assault, stalking, violation of the pending restraining order, criminal trespass. Through it all, Cade never left my side. His hand steady on my back, his presence a constant reassurance. Back at the penthouse, I couldn't stop shaking. The adrenaline crash hit hard, making my hands tremble and my breath come in uneven gasps. Cade guided me to the couch, sitting beside me and taking my hands in his. "I'm sorry you had to witness that violent side of me," he said quietly. "I lost control. When I saw him touching you, threatening you, something in me just snapped." "Don't apologize." I found my voice, though it came out hoarse. "You protected me when I needed it most. You've been protecting me from the moment I climbed into your car." His thumb traced circles on my wrist, a soothing gesture. "James, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." I nodded, too emotionally exhausted to deflect. "Will you be mine?" The question was direct, vulnerable in a way I hadn't expected from him. "Not because you're scared, not because you feel obligated, but because you genuinely want this connection between us. I need to know if what I'm feeling is mutual." I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd taken me in when I was desperate, who'd given me safety and security, who'd put himself between me and danger without hesitation. The man who made me feel things I'd never felt before, whose presence calmed my omega instincts in a way that felt like coming home. "Yes," I heard myself say, and it felt like the most honest thing I'd ever admitted. "Yes, Cade. I want this. I want you." Relief flooded his features, followed quickly by something deeper, more possessive. He pulled me into his arms, and this time when he kissed me, there was nothing tentative about it. It was claiming, possessive, but also tender in a way that made my heart ache. "Mine," he murmured against my lips. "Say it." "Yours." I breathed and felt the bond between us solidify into something real and unbreakable. The claiming was both gentle and intense, Cade's control never slipping even as his need for me became obvious. When it was done, I lay in his arms, marked and mated, feeling more complete than I'd ever felt in my life. The next week brought resolution. Daniel was officially charged, the restraining order granted with severe penalties for violation. Cade's legal team ensured he would face consequences for every crime he'd committed. At work, I proved myself capable and competent, earning respect from colleagues through hard work rather than favoritism. The scandal died down as these things do, replaced by newer gossip, and Cade gradually let me see past his walls. We learned each other. His preference for silence in the mornings, my habit of humming while I worked, his fear of losing control, my need for reassurance. 1 month later, standing on his balcony with the city lights spread below us and his arms wrapped around me from behind, I finally felt at peace. "Did you ever imagine that hiding in a stranger's car would change your entire life?" he asked, his breath warm against my ear. I smiled, leaning back into his solid warmth. "Never, but I'm grateful it did. So am I, James. So am I." And in that moment, with stars above and safety in his arms, I knew I was finally home.